We're good, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Will. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Tuesday, September 16, 2025 council meeting. And we'll begin with disclosure of pecuniary interest. And we'll move on to staff and committee reports. Councillor Foote.
Awesome. We had a rec committee meeting last night, so it was fun. We talked about the bottle drive. For the months of June, July, August, and September, we managed to raise $3,069.80, which is fantastic. It goes towards a lot of programming stuff, right? So lots of fun. Thank you to everyone for the help last week. Last week was a big one. Soccer wrap up, and I think we struggled this year with the rain. 3 weeks of rain, which then pushed everything off, and then we struggled with volunteers. So it's a little bit of everything, but the kids seem to love it. It's fun, right? It's 10 weeks of fun. Canada Day wrap up. I think everybody had a great time. The fireworks were good. You saw everybody having a good time. Cupcakes were really good. Music, of course, and we came under budget, which was fantastic. Really good idea. Unfortunately, the music market was canceled, and we moved to the band from that, was rescheduled and moved into the trunk sale. So it was a big hit with the trunk sale, and it helped bring people in, but we were, with the trunk sale, we were competing with some other events going on. So there was a lot going on in the area. Movie night was fantastic. Lots of laughter, lots of tears. There was lots of tears that night. You hear people? Yeah, it was one of those sad movies.
Oh,
Lilo and Stitch.
yeah.
I'm like, oh, but we had a great time. I think we said there's about 50 people there approximately. And the Frasies were a big hit, and we just had a really good time. The movie was great. Tears, but the movie was still good. Chair yoga starting up again September 29th, because we didn't have summer, so that's on the way go again. And I think the trunk sale was a pretty big hit. 15 tables were registered and we had 11 show up. So, and people seemed to really like it, seemed to like what was going on there.
It was good. It was
good. Unfortunately, I didn't make that one because I was at in North Bay with with hockey, but I heard lots of good stuff. So if anybody's been by the outdoor rink, they're going to see all the changes happening out there. You get phone calls like, what's going on with the rink? But I think it's great. Helps us get things up. So it's a rebuild, new boards, new lights, leveling it all up, probably make it easier in the winter to make ice, because they're not having to fight with unlevel ground. And I think the kids are going to like it. Hopefully we can get more kids out there and skating, make it a little bit easier for everyone. We have had a request for additional picnic tables at Lynx Beach. We're working on that, and we'll go with that easier. District of Parry Sound Social Services, the administration board, has asked us to help with the community center. We request the use of the community center. So we're going to do the third week of the month from 1 o'clock till 4 o'clock. Third Wednesday of every month from 1 till 4. It's a great give back. It's a really good give back. We talked about that at the last council meeting. So I think that's fantastic. And I don't think I missed anything. Our next meeting is October 6th. Did I miss anything? Lots going on. It was a lot of just wrap up for us. And now we move on.
Good. Thanks, Councillor Foote.
Thanks.
Councillor Chowdhury.
Nothing for me today.
Okay. Councillor Scott.
Nothing.
Councillor
I have
Harvey.
two today. Museum board meeting, so I can run us through the stats that this is our wrap-up meeting. So the August totals were for the museum were 46 visitors, gift shop 14, visitors that went to both 35, and the events was 125 for a total of 201. So the museum totals for visitation or visiting visitors is 87 for the museum, 40 for the gift shop, and 55 visited both, and events 206 for a total of 369. And the events, we did the tea and talk, which is 28 visitors. Buttermaking was 13. 34 at the tent we had at the Commanda Summerfest. We did the outreach thing there. So we had 34 visitors there. Basket making 27. Actually, some people didn't show up because there was a conflicting scheduled time. Anyway, it was fortunate they didn't because they ran out of material. There was lots of material, but they used it. They got a full complement there. 98 people on Heritage Day, and Stitch and Sip were 6. So total special events, 206, and total regular visitors, 182. So give our yearly total of visitors of 389 or 388, and special events 206. Heritage Day, the meals, they sold 98 meals, and that was donations. And it worked out that we made where the total meals came out to about $8 a meal is what we made on each, and that was for like a hot dog, chicken, pop. So the net revenues, candy was $646, merchandise $903, donations $969, and special events $2,188. So for a total of $4,707. And but most of that was done in August, with a total in August of 3,518. So we did all right.
Yeah.
So I'll move on to
The food at Heritage Day was fantastic too. Everything was good.
everything, it just came off well.
Yeah.
So the library board, that's where I'm going. Okay, so there's a board governance seminar on November the 20th for 2 hours. Apparently I'm going to that. Well, it's a Zoom meeting anyway, so there's we had a fairly long discussion on the new circular economy legislation for recycling. The way that public entities are using it versus they were worried that the library is going to have to pay for more, but apparently Wasson's going to continue to collect their refuse. We closed out we did a music festival this year, and they netted $1,991.17 after expenses.
Yes.
Which we agreed, made a motion to do that again next year, because it's one of those things that we can do right in the backyard. We can do it every year. Closed out 3 of the what do they call them? You know, the funds that we get. We're still waiting for the OTF. We're waiting for an MPP dignitary to be able to show up, because we've got to use a media event for that, and he's been busy. So we're thinking we'll get it closed out in October. We don't actually get the money until he shows up to do we know we're getting the money, we're just waiting for the dignitary to do the newspaper event. So that's where we're going with that. The mayors are going to do the reading for the kids again at Christmas, and we're trying to talk the mayors into doing a Halloween one as well, your worship, so you know. They did some Wasson did some the Braden left.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I wasn't sure if everybody was aware of that. So they did some restructuring. Allison is handling everything now, and their bylaw officer left as well. So Mark, I think, is going to take part of that on. So there's some restructuring there. So we're not sure exactly how that's going to work out. For the new agreement for the 3 communities this fall, in October sometime, the expectation is that the 3 mayors will meet along with the councillors, the representative councillors from each community. So we'll expect to hear some more from that in early October. And other than that, I think that's all I have. Oh, and I was supposed to get some more of these. I'll get some more and bring them to the township office. That's the events for the coming month at the library. And so I'll get both of these set up and I'll drop them off at the office. That's it.
Thanks, Councillor Kirky. I just have a quick, we had a Pines meeting today. Patios are all finished. All the privacy fences. I don't know if anybody ever goes out there, but if you're in Powassan, take a quick drive in and out. Canalex did an awesome job, like just beautiful workmanship. Everybody's happy. We're just waiting for the final invoices and that'll be paid out and everything is over, but it looks really good. Everyone's happy. Posting today for a new building maintenance person for the Pines. Tim is changing jobs, so the big shoes to fill there, but they're going to put it out and then we're going to look at other options for outside maintenance for summer, winter. We have a snow removal person to do the main yard, but we still need somebody behind the blower to walk through and do things. So we're working on that right now. We made a motion and moved today to re-insulate the attic. They have so much heat loss there that there probably this winter there was over a foot of ice. So if it ever fell off, it's right above the patios. And just the savings alone in heat over the next few years will make a big difference. But the shingles, if you're losing that much heat, they're gonna be gone quick. And so we made a big decision to do that today, and we reviewed the July and August financial transactions. Everything's in great shape. So that's all I have on that. So I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Foote. Councillor Telepico. That the minutes of the special council meeting and the regular council meeting held September 2nd, 2025 be adopted as published. All in favor? I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Kirky. Councillor Scott. That we accept the resignation of Brenda Lennon as council appointee to the Powassan District Union Library Board, and that we advertise the vacant position for interested applicants. All in favor? mover and seconder. Councillor Foot. Whereas the province of Ontario, through the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, has made public the plans to aerial spray glyphosate-based herbicides in the Nipissing forest. And whereas scientific evidence since Health Canada's last assessment of glyphosate in 2017 has linked glyphosate-based end-use products to cancer, metabolic and neurological disease, reproductive toxicity, and ecosystem harm. And whereas alternative methods of forest management are available that provide a safer result, and whereas there has been significant public concern expressed over the continued use of glyphosate-based herbicide. Now, therefore, the Council of the Township of Nipissing supports the municipality of West Nipissing in requesting the province of Ontario cancel the aerial spray plans and revisit the safer options available and conduct further research and provide updated risk assessments on the use of glyphosate-based herbicides. All in favor?
Very supportive.
Yes. And I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Scott. Councillor Turkey. That the regular council meeting scheduled for Tuesday, October 21st, 2025 be rescheduled to Tuesday, October 28th, 2025 to allow for council members to attend the 2025 Northeastern Municipal Council Workshop. All in favor? Carried. Need a mover and a seconder. Good. Councillor Chalapico. Whereas the office building of the Nipissing Township Museum has been identified as requiring extensive foundation repairs to allow for continued use of the building. And whereas previous attempts at grant funding for the project have been unsuccessful, and whereas a quote for the block work repair required has been received at $10,000 from Barton Masonry, and the additional material and staff time have been calculated at approximately $10,990, providing a total of $20,990 not provided for in this year's budget. Now, therefore, council authorizes the acceptance of the quote and performance of the work required to repair the foundation and allow for continued operation of the building, with the required funds being utilized from the operating reserve of the township. All in favor? So now we're going to have a discussion on volunteer appreciation policy.
Okay. I think it's well written and time well spent. I think we have to decide the frequency, how often do it. Is there room to recognize long-term volunteers, people that have been doing it for longer periods of time? Is there different levels, and how often should we be doing this? Because it's very hard to find volunteers. And we don't spend a little more time appreciating them, it's gonna get harder and harder to get.
I agree with you. I think we talked at that council meeting, it's been a couple of months now, and we talked about allowing the incoming new council to decide whether it's gonna be once a term or once a year. And I think we lose volunteers just because we don't say thank you. And I think it's a big piece of that puzzle that says, thank you, right?
Yeah.
Can we do something once a year that says thank you, and it's
In my opinion.
very informal?
Once a year is better. Cause somebody could be on it for 3 years and
Yeah.
not get any recognition,
Absolutely.
and retaining volunteers would be, in my opinion, would be better if you did once a year.
And then the question I had for Kristen this week, and I know we don't normally do anything in the last year of council term, but can we still do it once a year? Because we've set precedent to say we're just recognizing our volunteers, and that's a question we'd have to ask them, whoever, but that was my question, and Kristen was gonna go kind of trying to get the information. Where does that put us, right? Do we maybe have to say, no, we can't do it that fourth?
I think if we already established a memorandum beforehand,
That's what I want, that's the
if
question. that
we
needs to be asked.
establish a memorandum beforehand, then it's gonna carry into that year anyway. I mean, yes, your last year is like that year, but it's not like we're making a decision that affects the township, because the memorandum's already been set in place. We're not making a new one at that point, right? We're just carrying out.
Showing the gratitude. for
Yes.
Say thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
It's something informal, you put a bunch of people together, whether it's a barbecue, whatever that may be in the.
Yeah.
In the park that says thank you, and they don't, it's not uncomfortable, it's just people getting together and saying, hey.
I look at, like, I'm not on the museum board, but there's been some residents here, been on there long term and more than 5 years, probably some of them more than 10. Should be noted or
Why can't we recognize
acknowledged
them in
or-
the, could we not recognize them in the newsletter?
Okay, so
Yeah.
I just want to make note of something here. So in the recognition cycle of this policy, it says while formal gifts are reserved for the third year, other recognition activities such as certificates of appreciation, public acknowledgements at events, or features in municipal newsletters or on municipal social media platforms may occur annually to maintain regular expressions of gratitude.
And not monthly?
It's as often as you want,
Well, really, I mean,
really.
it keeps people interested. Maybe I'm gonna be the volunteer this month, and
I look at the soccer. You get students that come out 1 year and don't come back.
And why?
Why? If they enjoyed it the first time, you gotta tell them, hey, thanks, we really, really appreciate you. And maybe they'll come back that second term, maybe they'll come back that third term. And help out.
Something somebody said to me today was, maybe it's a good piece to provide them with their certificate that says, thank you for your
just thinking of the
volunteer.
same thing,
Yeah.
a real nice certificate.
Thank you, Jean-Paul, that was his idea.
Oh,
But, and maybe it's a thank you and something that they can put in their portfolios that says, hey,
Well, yeah,
right?
a recognition from the township when they're building resumes, they're young, they're building resumes.
Yeah.
yeah, and a barbecue, like that barbecue that the firemen did on Heritage Day. Had
Fantastic.
lots of compliments on the food, so,
I think we get more from that than we would from a formal dinner,
Yeah.
sit down and say, hey.
Yeah.
I think we get more conversation, appreciation. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I look at soccer and it's tough to find people to come help, even though it's 1 day a week or whatever. If we recognize and make a little more of a big deal out of it, maybe it'd be easier. Maybe it'd be easier for bottle drive.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll see, hey, there's another opportunity, I can come help.
And once they talk amongst one another, they may find there's other things they think they could do. And again, it's that conversation, right? And making friends and making connections and networking and all of the above.
Yep.
And they're good ideas. And the certificate is a real good idea too with it.
It's a great idea.
So,
Well, the way this is written, it pretty much covers everything anyway. I mean, this is the policy. We're gonna review it each term anyway. And the way this policy is written out, it covers pretty much everything we've discussed here.
It's just a draft. It can be
Yeah.
brought back. You know, nothing is set in stone. We can bring it back and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Is there anything that we said that might not have been quite covered in here, or that you can tweak or takes our ideas and expand it even better?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, like I'm good with that, like,
Yeah,
so we'll do for a little more discussion. Is what
Yeah,
you're
we'll bring it
saying?
back.
Yeah.
okay, we'll move on. This part of our meeting is declared a public meeting pursuant to the provisions of section 3412 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, to discuss an application for change to the zoning bylaw 2020-20 by the Township of Nipissing. Questions?
So the 30-meter mark, that's the contentious issue, right? Is it?
Maybe not, because the last correspondence we got, I think everybody's on the same page with the 30-meter mark. Like they're rezoning, it's part of the provisional consent, they had to meet condition G when they did the severance
Mhm.
for an approval of a zoning bylaw amendment to implement the new wetland boundary, so the rezoning's to rezone the wetland and in the regulation though. So the boundary is not getting bigger, it's just the boundary is gonna show the EP wetland. And the regulation is saying you can't, say somebody comes in for a building permit, I have to say you have to be 30 meters away from the new zoning of the wetland boundary, which would be EP.
Mhm. Now, has the EP grown? Like, is it larger now than it was prior?
JP, do you want me to answer this here?
Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
Sorry. Thank you, Worship and Council. So as JP mentioned, this is really just an implementation exercise from the consent application. And what happened was there was known to be a wetland on the property. So the effective process was that an environmental consultant was hired. They went out and reviewed the limits of the wetland and identified where that is. So the limits of that wetland.
Sorry, Jamie.
It would have to be Jamie, would have to turn his up.
Can you turn yours up a little bit, Jamie, please?
I'm up all
Let
the
me
way.
see. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll try that. So the environmental consultant identified where the limits of the wetland are, but they identified that if there was any buildings and structures proposed within 30 meters of the wetland, then there needed to be a further EIS completed. So in light of that, what the recommendation is that the zoning bylaw amendment that we establish a special zone for that wetland and establish a 30-meter setback for development from it. So as JP mentioned, if someone comes in for a building permit on any of these lots, they just need to make sure that the building's more than 30 meters from the limits of that wetland. So it's a pretty standard application and approach. I just wanted to be clear too that this is a public meeting tonight, so we do need to provide both the applicant if they want to make any submissions, or the public if they want to make any comments on this, an opportunity. But I would, we have received correspondence, as JP mentioned, from the applicant that they're agreeable to the 30-meter setback. So in light of that, we do, our recommendation verbally to you, council, is that you are able, if you choose at the bylaw portion of the meeting tonight, to pass this this bylaw that's included as part of the agenda package. So I think that provides a bit of an overview, but if there's any questions, I can do my best to try to answer those for you.
I think it's pretty clear.
Just to provide public.
Yeah, so Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Stephen Carter, senior planner with Pellet. I do concur with almost 95% of what Mr. Robinson just said, but the caveat is that the rules on the 30-meter buffer are that you can't put any structures or development in there unless you do an EIS or a study that says that structure would be permitted in there. If anyone is familiar with the Altman's property, the 30-meter buffer is the entire lawn on the west side of their property. There's no wetland in there. So if they were to propose, say, a building site, it made sense that soil conditions, whatever the reason is, that it, or the septic is more appropriate to be further back and encroach into that buffer. In every other municipality that's under conservation authority rules, you can do that. You can make an application to do so with an accompanying EIS and get approval to do that. So I have no problem with the clients don't have a problem with the 30-meter buffer because that is a provincial standard in all municipalities under jurisdiction. We just like to add to that where it's prohibiting structures within that without further analysis or study or approval of the EIS, whatever wording that your consultant would your client record.
So am I, just to get my head around it. So you're okay with the buffer, but you want to be able to potentially in the future go inside of that buffer zone with an EIS?
Yeah, Councillor Turkey, just a little bit about background, and I will, please. So our senior environmental specialist, when I was a survey technician, we've spoken about this before. She is an M&R rep, qualified as wetland evaluator using the old system. So she walked and identified both the upland and wetland vegetative communities, the species, the composition, and there's a full report that I'm sure John Paul has shared with you. If he hasn't, I can certainly give you copies.
Yeah.
So they did waypoints, and the waypoints represent where the transition of the species that identify the boundary of the wetland changed 50% or greater. Okay, so when we suggested no buffer, when there was no, when Valerie suggested no buffer, that was because that was the limits of the wetland that she identified. It's your planner of record who's saying that we should implement a further 30-meter buffer. We would happily go with the limits that are identified by the wetland evaluator, but quite frankly, this has been dragging on a long time and my clients are tired and they have a lot of people who are waiting to close on consents and right-of-ways and things that are really important. So we'll acquiesce, but with the provision that if there's a reason to go into there, they have to do the additional study required to go into there, and whether that's triggered by a building permit or a septic permit, that's the way it is in every other municipality that we operate in. That's all.
Anybody else?
Just staying with our normal plan.
Yeah, there was options that our planner did give. And one of the options was to zone the wetland and have a 30-meter buffer in the regulation. That's what you need.
Yeah, like it's staying with our official plan, the way we normally do it same for everybody else.
Jamie, did you want to take a stab at that? Like,
Yeah, every application is different, but this is the common approach we've taken in other situations. So the recommendation again is that you pass the bylaw with which would zone the limits of the wetland, and then apply the special zone, which requires a 30-meter setback from the limits of that special zone.
We can't hear you.
so Jamie, they couldn't hear you in the crowd.
sorry. So just the recommendation again is consistent with the bylaw that's part of the agenda package, and that is to zone the wetland and apply a 30-meter setback for development from the limits of the wetland. And that's in accordance with the recommendations from the applicant's environmental consultant. So so we're fine with that bylaw being passed tonight, if that's what our recommendation is.
If I could just say a few words, like regarding that wetland, we went through, we did 2 pre-consultation meetings with the township and got all this information. We went ahead and paid large dollars to get a study done to identify any wetlands. And I guess we didn't understand that my understanding was there's different classifications of wetlands, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's all environmentally protected. This is dry. There's a lot of these areas that are in there. There's dry land. There was no water. Spring, like maybe in the spring, but I walked in 50 to 100 feet there yesterday. There was no water laying there. There's birch trees. There's evergreen trees growing in there, and there's some of the wet spots. The area up near the lake that we're concerned with. We have a huge, there's a large lawn area there that we cut with a garden tractor for the last 35 years. That's all clear and dry land. There's no wetland vegetation in there. It's all just clean grass. And for this 30 meters to take up that whole section, it eliminates or nearly eliminates the ability to build and do all the components of a building there, like as Steve mentioned, like whether you're septic or you're building or whatever. And if anybody wants to look at it, go to the site, you can clearly see that it is not a wetland. It is dry land and a lawn. And my wife has pictures if anyone's interested in looking at it for the lawn area that we're referencing. And there's no wetland there. So I guess what we're asking is if somebody were to build, either we don't do buffer in that area at all, which would be which would make a whole lot more sense to me at least, and looking at the land and just and assessing it, but also have the option if somebody were to try to build there, to have an option that you can do a study to say that it's not impacting anything, it's not impacting the wetland, and allow the building to take place, or if they're encroaching into that 30-meter zone. And I guess that's what we're asking for. I guess some consideration, I guess, and perhaps some common sense. Like this whole exercise that we've done, we've fixed a pile of right-of-way issues for all the property owners in the whole area that didn't have proper right-of-ways, and we offered all of that to those people so that they will have a real right-of-way. And I'd like to think that that's cleaning up a lot of issues for the township as well by providing all of that pieces there, because we have a bunch of lots and cottages and and homes that are there that have no proper right of way. And we've offered all of that, and we've got all of that laid out. So, you know, we're just trying to look for some, I guess, for lack of a better term, and all respect to some common sense decisions on the AP zone and the buffer zone.
And just some comments to that, Jamie, like we rely on these reports, like EIS reports when creating these wetland boundaries. And second of all,
If you
one
can just
day-
give me screen sharing permission, I just like to share something. It might help.
okay,
Sorry to butt in, JP.
that's right.
You should be good, Jamie.
Okay, so this document's attachment 3, and this is from the applicant's consultant.
Can't hear you.
Sorry, this is attachment 3 to the report. It's dated September 4th. It's prepared by the applicant's environmental consultant. And I've just highlighted the key portion of it. It states, should future site alteration be proposed within 30 meters of a wetland, we recommend that an environmental impact study be completed by a qualified professional to assess and mitigate potential impacts. So what that says to me as a planner is the only mechanism we have to make sure that an EIS gets completed for development within 30 meters of a wetland is to require 30-meter setback from that wetland. If we require a 5-meter setback from the wetland or no setback from the wetland, they can simply come in, apply for a building permit, and the building official has to issue the building permit. That's what applicable law is. So the only mechanism we have through zoning to implement this recommendation of the applicant's environmental consultant is to require a 30-meter setback from the limits of the wetland. It's a very simple issue here. So that's where this is coming from. We're not pulling this out of thin air here. This is a pretty standard application in a standard situation. So that's really all I've got to say on it.
The context of that doesn't define and strictly prohibit in that 30 meters. What they're saying is if you go up, if you try to want to get into that 30-meter buffer, is that a study has to be done to find out if it's okay. But, and that is the way in all the other municipalities read. But in here, you're saying if it's a 30-meter buffer, then nothing can happen in there forever. And to me, like it's wasted land for one thing. What we're saying is if we need to encroach within that 30-meter buffer, then let that person or us or whoever do a study and show that it's that's not a wetland and it's okay to work in there.
Mayor, through you quickly, please. The issue that's been raised by Mr. Robinson and John Paul is that there's no trigger, there's no, way to stop them from building because the onus is on the chief building official. I've been around the Nipissing Township a long time. I know these two talk constantly, Cameron and John Paul and whoever comes after him. And the Conservation Authority has to give a building or a septic permit if they were to encroach in there. And if they wanted to go within the 30-meter buffer, they require them to provide additional information. Can we not use some common sense and say if they want to, if there is a building site that is encroaching in that the chief building official and the planning administrator could request that they provide an EIS prior to issuing a building permit.
So the EIS trigger is the protection for future building.
Correct.
Basically.
I understand what Mr. Robinson is saying, but we don't need to control it in that manner. You're a township, you can make decisions and if a building permit, and we're not saying that there is, we're not saying that they're ever going to go into any of that, but if the site conditions, if it makes sense from a building position, that has to happen, and just give them the opportunity to do that. It's a ball field that they've been playing on for 35 years. Mr. Robinson's suggesting that you should rezone and not allowing structures in. So that's their comment.
Just to clarify, I'm not the one making the suggestion about the 30 meters. That's the applicant's consultant that suggested that no development can occur within 30 meters from unless an EIS is completed. And the only mechanism the township has to do that is to zone that land.
I'm not, that's not the only reason you guys have. You have a building permit, you have a building official. I think everyone in this room, after the weeks that this has been going on, literally months, would have the opportunity to address that. That's all.
So,
Factually incorrect. Factually incorrect is all I'm gonna say.
so to protect that, would everybody be okay with using an EIS as, or a building permit as an EIS trigger?
Well, just like, when you get a building permit, I have to look at the zoning bylaw, and then that guides me after. It's hard to
Okay.
get the EIS at the building permit stage. Like imagine you want to build a house, and I say to you, oh, you have to get an EIS before you apply for your building permit. First of all, you'd be unhappy, but more importantly, I have no jurisdiction to do that.
So if we do it the way we normally do it,
Yeah.
same for everybody else, they can still apply for a building permit and then have to meet, prove that they're not wetlands at that time.
Like if you rezone it as presented, the EP lands will be EP.
Yeah.
You can't build 30 meters or put structures 30 meters from it.
Yeah.
Everybody sees that, future buyers, whoever, it's in our zoning bylaw. Like say it was not to work here anymore, somebody else came in, they look at the bylaw, it's the same thing for everybody. That moves into the future. I've never asked for an EIS at a building permit stage.
We pass special zones all the time. You guys special, your special zone could read exactly what John Paul just said, with the line on the end that says without an approved EIS or without an approved condition. That's exactly that. So someone, whether it's him or some future planning administrator, opens up, checks the building permit for the zoning, and the zoning says that I'm in special conditions. Slides it back and says you have to complete an EIS to build within 30 meters of this wetland. The end of the story. It's both control, and that's what we're asking for.
Like, are they suggesting to defer it to get a new EIS done?
No, just
No.
asking for a special.
Yeah, but you just said that I said something that I didn't say.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm suggesting that we could say exactly the 30-meter buffer with the requirement that if any development, instead of saying no development, no structures allowed within the 30-meter buffer, no structures or development allowed within the 30-meter buffer without an approved EIS.
Why do we even do a buffer?
Can I just
Why don't
speak?
we just have the
Yeah, let's see what
EA
you-
all the way to the edge? So that there isn't this.
You could, that was one of the
contentious-
options. You could have just moved the EP another 30 meters around it, but we're just putting it in the regulation that you can't put a structure within 30 meters. And then just zone the wetland as EP.
Very valid question the counselor just asked. Why are you doing an extra 30 meters in the first place?
Jamie, can you speak to that? I think we chatted about this.
Sorry, what do you want me to speak to? Why is there a 30-meter setback proposed on the limits of the from the limits of the wetland? Is that the question?
Rather than making it just EA zone.
Yeah. So we really provided three options. One option would be the wetland plus 30 meters from the extent of it be zoned EP. The other option would be to zone the wetland EP and provide a 30-meter development setback from that. If somebody wants to build within that 30 meters, they could do an EIS as recommended by the applicant's consultant, undertake a minor variance application, and then they could then construct within 30 meters as what's suggested. That would be the process to undertake. The other option
That's what we're asking.
can I just finish here? The
I'm
other
sorry.
option is that the applicant update their EIS and their environmental consultant do a more detailed review and identify a different setback. If 30 meters isn't the suggested setback, then maybe it's something else. But right now, what the applicant's consultant has suggested or requested or identified as being appropriate to protect the wetland is 30 meters. The whole idea of requiring an EIS conditional at the building permit stage, that's conditional zoning. That would be like saying you need to do a fish habitat study before we're going to issue a dock permit, for example. And although the Planning Act identifies conditional zoning within it, there's no regulations that have been provided in the Planning Act to deal with it. So municipalities aren't allowed to do conditional zoning. So what's being suggested is something that can't be done. So those are your three options. We provided what we think is the most fair option, provides some flexibility, and they can come forward with a minor, if they want to build in that 30 meters, they can come forward with a minor variance application. Alternatively, if they want to do a more detailed study right now, then council should defer this application and wait for the results of that study. Maybe it comes in with a lesser requested setback. Maybe it comes in with a greater setback. But right now, what their consultant's suggesting is a 30-meter setback. And that's all we've got.
Do the laws or bylaws or whatever, do they dictate that anything that's identified as wetland per se, there's no different categories or classifications, everything that is a wetland is becomes an EP zone? Like if you drive around the township, I see some areas that are flooded in water and there's cattails and there's ducks swimming around and everything there. So I would consider that as a wetland, but in a property that we have trails in, we snowshoe, bike through, and walk through, and there's trees and vegetation, large trees. There's trees in there that are over 2 feet in diameter in different locations. I don't know what constitutes in the planning of the townships. Is kind of classified that as totally EP, and there's no in between. If you have a wetland identified, it's totally going to be an environmentally protected area. You know, and there's no exception.
Well, we can either defer this, or I have a resolution I'm going to read.
Yeah, I mean,
Wasn't it your biologist that decided that wetland?
correct. They identified the wetland, they surveyed it. So they actually used the survey technician, and it's based on 50% transition of vegetation. That is the wetland boundary.
So she did declare.
Yes.
This is the wetland.
Follow-up letter was a request, and we agree that, that could have been a solution that within 30 meters, but they need the flexibility to be able to define an envelope that might encroach in that 30 meters. They've told this council and previous committees before, we go into 30-meter buffers on a regular basis with the proper justification and study. It happens all over the city of North Bay, the whole Trout Lake shoreline, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all they're asking for, just be consistent with their asking for. So the whole issue is that there's no planning trigger. There might not be, but there's a building permit trigger and there's a conservation authority trigger as well. We're not even, just to finish, we're not even sure if there's going to be an encroachment in the 30-meter buffer. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's a good point that Steve just brought up. Did anybody do a building, say, envelope showing, because I know the 2 lots on PSR, something on the PSR plan, there's 2 lots that are 50 feet wide.
Yeah.
And when I kind of just glance down at the application, and I bring that 50 feet plus 50 is 100. So when you take that think I kind of did a little drawing actually once in a while. You didn't have to do a drawing, did you, Steve? To show the envelope after the 30-meter? No. So in here, I did a small little drawing on paper. And roughly, this isn't accurate by all means, but if somebody did provide something like that, I think you might be surprised. 'Cause just judging on the two lots that are 50 feet wide and just judging down, I think you'll have an envelope, but you can't hold, like, I don't want to be held to it, but like at the same time, if somebody performed that little exercise, there might be a bigger opening there than somebody might think. Am I totally incorrect in that?
Actually, I agree. There might be a good size of building envelope, but if there isn't, they need flexibility to,
Yeah, and that flexibility will come, as Jamie said, through a planning act approval application. Because then somebody could go out, study it, say, hey,
Yeah.
this is all lawn, then you apply for it. Not the greatest scenario,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's not
But
like this is in stone.
Doable, would you be equitable to that?
you're asking a suggestion of a minor variance if it did have to encroach another 30 meter and justifying that for additional.
If you had to.
If you,
If you had,
You
to,
might
so-
not have to.
but you could cover it with a minor variance.
Yes,
That would be an option though to.
yes.
Oh, absolutely.
That's for setbacks.
Okay.
Yes, still the same.
What I
use.
read, what I heard as far as, was it going to be any option at all for that?
No, there's an option.
No,
Jamie and-
yeah,
Our
there is an
job here
option.
is to try and make it work.
I think we have an agreement.
Okay.
All right,
So I'm gonna read this resolution. Okay, I need a mover and a seconder. Counselor Scott, Counselor Kirky. That we pass bylaw 2025-25 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2020-20 as amended. Read this first, second, and third time and passed on the 16th day of September 2025. All in favor? Passed.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Amy.
Thanks, Jamie.
Great evening.
So I'm sorry, just for my clarity, then there'll be verbiage in there to say that we have the opportunity to.
Yeah, what needs to read is that they rezoned it plus the buffer, there apply the 30 meter buffer. If you can go into the 30 meter buffer, or not you, any future builder.
Right.
And they want to go within that 30 meter buffer, they have to justify that through the minor variance process and the additional. And as Jean Paul said, might be much ado about nothing, there might be a viable building or
Yeah.
there.
just
Yeah.
maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
I
Thank you.
didn't want to have 20, 30 acres and build a tiny house.
It might be bigger than you think.
It might be.
No.
Okay, I need a mover and a seconder. Counselor Cheryl Pinto. Second by Counselor Foote. That we received the correspondence reported as present. All in favor? And the mover and a second. That the statement of accounts dated August 30th, September 3rd, 5th, 10th, and 11th, 2025, totaling $201,674.72 be approved. All in favor?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
I need a mover and a seconder. That we pass bylaw number 2025-26 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on September 16th, 2025. Read this first, second, and third time, passed on the 16th day of September 2025. All in favor? Seconder. Councillor Perkins. Councillor Foot. That the regular meeting be adjourned, time 7:30 PM. Next regular meeting to be held October 2nd, 2025. All in favor?